I remember being in the hotel, I looked at my ankles and they were like, "Ah," I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And then I took my shirt off and it was like, just hanging there. And it was like gross. It actually took me a little while to convince my primary care doc to even measure testosterone. He measured total testosterone. Of course, total testosterone is not going to be the most informative thing that you can measure. It's basically like, you don't have any problem. There's, you're normal.
I tell people, if you're looking at starting that, I mean, there's a point of no return is just the way I explain it to people. I think if you're kind of a jerk to begin with, you're just going to be more of a jerk, right?
That was my concern, right? He started to go down this path of, well, doesn't testosterone accelerate aging and shorten lifespan? And I had to kind of stop him and say, no, there's no data to support that. Do I regret like waiting so long to start? Yeah, a little bit.
Really?
I think. All right. Well, thanks, Kevin, for stopping by Optispan headquarters. This is an episode I've been wanting to do for a while because I feel like there are a lot of guys out there who are where I was a few years ago and really considering whether testosterone therapy is the right thing for them, trying to figure out if so, how to do it. And I think my experience probably hasn't been atypical, but I've learned a lot from it, and so I figured it's worth sharing. And since you were the guy who I think really helped me get on the right track with testosterone therapy, it's perfect that you're here and we can just sort of have a conversation about the whole experience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fun to be back at the mothership.
You're a repeat offender on the Optispan podcast.
Yes.
So maybe just to set the stage, I mean, I know I've told you the story, but I'll take a step back to, how I first got started, even thinking that I might be deficient in testosterone. I would say, looking back now in hindsight, I can tell very likely sometime in my 40s, maybe even early 40s, I was starting to have symptoms of testosterone deficiency, low energy, fatigue, loss of libido, changes in body composition. I wasn't getting the results from working out that I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't ever make the connection at that point. And then probably about the time I turned 50, I was, pretty sure that certainly it was something I should have looked at. And it actually took me a little while to be able to convince my primary care doc at the time to even measure testosterone. And when I finally did, and again, I didn't know what I was doing. This was really before I started paying attention to my own health and becoming educated. I was certainly doing the basic research in my laboratory, but I wasn't really knowledgeable about the clinical side of healthspan and healthspan medicine. And so he measured total testosterone, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back in the normal range. I would say, lower end of normal, but it was normal. And he was like, oh, you don't have any problem.
Do you remember what it was?
I don't remember. I could probably go back and find it. I'd have to log into my chart. But he was basically like, you don't have any problem. There's you're normal. And so I went home and I'm like, okay, I'm normal. And then of course I, did some research, and this was before ChatGPT existed. So I had to do it the old fashioned way and look it up on Google. But, realized that of course, total testosterone is not going to be the most informative thing that you can measure.
Right.
And at this point, this was probably now a year after that, I was talking with a friend of mine who also was under the impression that he might be testosterone deficient, and he had gone and gotten some blood work done on his own, and found that he had high SHBG, so sex hormone binding globulin, and low free testosterone. And so we were talking, and he's like, hey, you should go get your blood tested. You can just order it online and get a blood test. And so I went and did that, and I was in the same boat. So I found out that I had elevated SHBG, low free testosterone. And so I knew at that point that I probably was testosterone deficient. I was very hesitant to really even think about testosterone therapy right out of the gate. So I started trying
Sure.
to look at, well, what causes high SHBG, and again, this is probably worth at least talking about. I think people immediately, not everyone, some people immediately will be like, well, what caused your low testosterone and high SHBG? And obviously you don't know, right, going in. Some of the things that might have contributed, I think, again, looking back now, I suspect that there's a genetic component. I suspect my father had low testosterone early on in his life. And we don't need to get into the reasons why I think that's true, but I think that's probably true. And this was at a period in my life where I was consuming more alcohol than was optimal. And so alcohol can affect the liver and cause you to produce more sex hormone binding globulin. Certainly it was a stressful period of life. I mean, there's lots of things that can cause it.
Sure.
I don't think you ever know for sure what caused it. I wasn't in bad physical shape. I certainly wasn't eating a healthy diet. I was exercising, but I wasn't in nearly as good of physical shape as I am now. So it's probably a combination of all of those things that contributed. And, it is something that happens as part of the aging process in some men, right? That you have this natural decline in testosterone, increase in SHBG. But at this point, I didn't really know, what to do about it, right? So I was looking, and, there's a variety of things that you can do to try to naturally boost testosterone, right? So there are supplements you can take. I tried a few. One that I tried was boron. I don't know if you've probably heard of this, but the idea that boron can reduce SHBG. It didn't for me.
Did you start sleeping better? Did you do any other things?
You mean lifestyle wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly I cleaned up my diet. I dramatically reduced my alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
I was already exercising, continued to exercise regularly. I did all that. That was kind of the first thing, was try to get the lifestyle in order.
Right.
And I would say, you're, I'm sure, familiar with this. I wasn't at the time. You do a series of blood tests maybe every 3 months, and you'll see some up and down.
Sure. Yeah, it's not static.
But nothing to the point where the SHBG went down enough to have a big impact on free testosterone. Maybe it's worth just saying for people who don't, who aren't in the weeds on this. So the way this works, right, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is you've got, circulating testosterone. Sex hormone binding globulin is a protein that will bind to sex hormones, including testosterone, including estrogens. So the more sex hormone binding globulin you have, the less free testosterone you're going to have. Free testosterone will also be bound up by albumin, is my understanding.
Correct.
So if you want to calculate free testosterone, instead of measuring it, there's a calculation you can do that looks at SHBG and albumin levels and total testosterone to estimate free testosterone. But just worth appreciating that it's the amounts of these other proteins that influence how much free testosterone you have.
Yeah, and that's the important number to see. I mean, that's the active
right
hormone in
Although
the body.
It's not the only piece of information, because different people are going to have different testosterone receptor densities and sensitivities. So even that won't give you a perfect indication of where you're at. But it's probably the best we can do if you want to look at one number, right? So anyways, none of that worked. I tried DHEA, and that's the only thing I would say that worked, but it was very transient. And I got up to doses that were pretty high. I think I got up to 100 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know it works is there was about a 3-day period where I had very noticeable changes in the symptoms you would expect to have changes in if you're taking testosterone. So it was, I have no doubt that it worked.
Did it increase
your period of time?
Did it increase your, I mean, did you have any objective data that it increased your testosterone?
I did not measure it.
Yeah.
I did not measure it. Yeah. It did something. I'll just put it that way.
Sure, it did at those levels. That's a controlled substance in Europe.
I do. Yeah.
Right. And here you can just get it.
Yeah, so you can buy it on Amazon. Yeah. But for me, I mean, again, I didn't measure it, so I can't say with 100% confidence. Symptom-wise, I had pronounced symptom relief, almost pushing it too far, I would say, for about 3 days. And then it stopped, and it never did anything after that. So, So again, maybe some people, and I've heard, I don't know if it's true, I've heard that women tend to maybe get, because they don't need as much of a boost in testosterone to
Yeah, it works really
symptom
well,
relief.
and in women it works really well.
Or at least some women, yeah.
5 milligrams lower dose. Yeah,
wow.
sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, after that, I sort of felt like I had exhausted the uh, lifestyle and supplement options,
Right.
and it didn't really have any effect. And so I really then started to consider, was it time to do testosterone therapy?
And that's important. What you just said, though, is a lot of people will just jump straight to treatment. And it's really important to do your due diligence, to do everything you can to bring that up naturally in other ways by lifestyle and all that. I've seen a lot of people in our practice that have dramatically improved their testosterone by just some of those lifestyle and,
Sure.
appropriate, exercise, weight training, all those sorts of things,
Right.
sleep,
Right.
lowering alcohol, all those things can really move the needle there. So,
Right.
I mean, that's good that you did all that. I mean, a lot of people will go to some of these, men's clinics and just
Yeah.
go to town.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I mean, I think, an add-on to that is once you go on testosterone therapy, if you do,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean then you shouldn't do all the lifestyle
Mhm.
things, right? It's not an excuse to not
Yeah.
try to live a healthy lifestyle as well. And maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more. I will say for me personally, the combination of being on testosterone and living a healthy lifestyle has, I think, allowed me to see many of the benefits from testosterone therapy.
Mhm.
So I think those two things are coupled.
Mhm.
So anyways, to go back, I really started to think maybe it's time to do that. Uh, and I also, through doing more research, realized that there were some blood-based markers that I hadn't looked at that I probably should. So I went at this point and got yet another blood draw, including FSH and LH, so follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And those were both elevated, still had low pre-testosterone,
Okay.
still had
Yeah.
high SHBG. So that's
Yeah.
again, you tell me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, that's a pretty definitive for primary hypogonadism, which just means that your testicles are not producing enough testosterone. The signal is probably still there, but it's really a testicle problem.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case,
And were you on rapamycin at the time?
good question. So I was that's great because people are gonna wonder. So
Because you're Matt Kaeberlein.
yes.
That's why.
So what I can say with certainty is I was testosterone deficient before the first time I ever took rapamycin.
Yeah.
In the cycles so rapamycin did not cause this. I would also say rapamycin didn't fix it, right?
Right.
I don't recall that I ever got the hormones measured while, like before a cycle of rapamycin and after a cycle of rapamycin. Like, was there a sort of transient change? I don't know. But I think I can say with confidence, rapamycin did not cause it. Rapamycin did not fix it. And as far as I can tell, rapamycin didn't really have any impact on this particular, feature of my physiology.
Right.
But also didn't look as exhaustively as I possibly could have.
Mhm.
So primary hypogonadism seemed like the obvious explanation. Maybe it's worth just briefly talking about what other things could cause low testosterone in men if it's not a testicular production problem.
What other things can cause low testosterone in men?
Right.
If it's not, I mean, low production of LH and FSH, from
Because they stimulate the testicles to produce testosterone.
Right. So if you've got that going on, and that primarily will come with, lack of sleep, alcohol, all those sorts of things, is probably the lowest hanging fruit on that.
So I guess the one practical piece of advice is if you think you might have low testosterone, or you have already, done that part, found that you have low testosterone or high SHBG, getting that broader panel measured then can help you differentiate whether it's signaling. So FSH and LH are produced in the brain to then signal to the testicles.
It's your pituitary.
In the pituitary,
Yeah.
right? So if it's a pituitary production of FSH and LH problem, or response in the testicles to the FSH and LH, and there are some different ways you might go about treating that, right? If it's and so it's that called secondary hypogonadism if it's a pituitary problem.
Yes. And I mean, we've had a lot of success in the right guys, early 40s, younger people. If we've gone through all the other steps, doing things like Clomid, every other day, had a lot of success.
And that
with
will bump up production of FSH and LH and
Yeah.
kind of restore the signaling.
Yeah.
Okay. So any case, in my situation, that clearly wasn't the problem because those markers were pretty high. They were definitely outside the normal range and pretty high outside the normal range. So then, I just really started seriously thinking about it. And I probably spent about a year waffling, going back and forth
Really?
on the fence. Yeah.
And that's good, actually.
And it's also common, right?
Yeah,
and so
it is.
the kinds of things I was concerned about were permanent reduction or cessation in endogenous testosterone production. Even though I wasn't producing as much as I optimally would, I was still producing some. And when you start taking testosterone therapy, that will cause your endogenous testosterone production to basically hit the floor, right? Because you don't need to make it because you're getting it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And again, you might be more up to date on this than me. The at least perception seems to be that if you take testosterone long enough, that won't come back. So if you take it long enough and you stop taking it, you're unlikely to then be able to restart your endogenous testosterone production. Although I understand that that's evolving and there are things you can do. So I think it's not a black and white.
Yeah.
But let's just say it's harder to restart your testosterone production the longer you've been on testosterone.
Yeah, right. Right, it is. I mean, there are some ways you can do that, HCG and some other things, but yeah, I tell people if you're looking at starting that, I mean, there's a point of no return is just the way I explain it to people. But there are people who've been on it. I've got another patient who was on it for a long time, started really early, which I don't really agree with, and this
so he was already on it when he came.
Yeah, this was outside of my care prior to that over the past 10 years. And he wanted to get, his wife and him wanted to have another child and all that sort of stuff. So his doctor at the time started him on HCG and he seemed to respond to that. And they were able to have some more kids. So, I mean, it's possible. You're not hosed, so to speak, but we just set the expectation that you're going to be doing it for the rest.
And my guess is, like, for someone like me, who's in his 50s or even people who are older, the likelihood you're going to be able to kind of restart that engine probably gets lower the longer you've been on it and with age. So anyways, that was one of the things I was concerned about. It's like a sort of a permanent choice, right?
Right.
And you have to psychologically be prepared that this might be something you do for the rest of your life. And so that was probably the biggest thing I had to work through before I decided to make the decision to start testosterone therapy. I was concerned about hair loss. Again, I don't know how real that is, generally speaking, across the board.
Yeah.
Although I will say that is one of the things I believe I experienced, pretty noticeable when I first started testosterone, and then it kind of stabilized. But that was something I was concerned about. It wasn't a big deal to me, but you think about it.
Sure.
I was sort of, I think I also was a little bit, at least I thought about, will it change my personality? This idea of roid rage. Would I become like this raging, Hulk, right?
Well, I think if you're kind of a jerk to begin with, you're just going to be more of a jerk, right?
That was my concern, right? With
that you're a jerk and you're going to...
No, but I mean, the idea that there would be personality changes to go along with it. And then also kind of related to that, I think still there is a bit of a stigma associated with testosterone therapy. Although in some ways that's changed quite a bit with the sort of proliferation of these tea shops, and you can just get it. And so many men are on testosterone now. We should probably talk about that down the road. Like, I think that's not a great development either. But this stigma that you're taking testosterone, and I think especially somebody, not that I'm a big personality in the longevity space now, but back then I wasn't. But the idea that, I'm out there, I'm a longevity scientist, just the idea that people are gonna be like, oh, he just takes testosterone, right? He's another one of those guys, right?
Right.
It's dumb, but it's real. And you just have to accept that there are gonna be the haters who are gonna hate no matter what.
Yeah.
And recognize that that's gonna be part
of it.
And I mean,
and some people our age can get it up, can actually improve their levels without exogenous testosterone with other ways. And they should, absolutely. But I will tell you, I don't, when you look at guys aging well in their 80s and active and mentally sound, and that are on physiological doses, I mean, why wouldn't you want to age like that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, sure.
how do you want to age? So,
Right.
I mean, you've got these receptors in your brain. It helps with cognitive decline, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And, never mind, sarcopenia and all that stuff,
Right.
which you've talked about before.
Yeah, and I mean, logically, yes, I
Yeah.
recognize all that and agree with
Sure.
all that. But I mean, there is this sort of emotional, psychological thing
Right.
that you've got to work through.
Mhm.
And then the last thing, and again, it's kind of seems silly now because I've been on testosterone for a while, but I don't know if scared is the right word. I had anxiety about injecting myself every day. Because I'd never done it, right?
Yeah.
So I think all of those things were contributed to about a year where I was on the fence thinking about it, and so I finally decided to do it. And I still had the anxiety about injecting myself, so I did research into the orally available forms. Jitenzo is I think the most common one. So it used to be the case, this is my understanding, that oral testosterone had pretty significant liver toxicity risks.
Right.
But the Jitenzo is supposed to bypass the liver metabolism and at least reduce, if not completely prevent those.
Right.
And so I got a prescription for Jitenzo, started taking it. And I would say that's one of the mistakes I made. Was not just going right to, in hindsight now looking back, not just going right to the injectable. I'm not saying that the oral isn't right for some people, but I had it worked. So in the sense of, I had symptom relief in the sense of, notable increase in energy, notable increase in libido, notable improvement in mood, I would say, pretty significant improvements in my workouts and change in body composition, all of that.
Stress tolerance and sleep.
I have slept pretty well, so I don't know that I had I don't know that I started with a sleep deficit that I would notice. And, especially once I cut way back on the alcohol, my sleep was really good to begin with. So,
yeah.
So I can't say that I noticed anything when it comes to sleep improvement, but in the other domains, like
stress tolerance, that kind of thing, or did you notice
again,
much
I
there?
don't know. I personally don't perceive stress that much. Like I don't recognize when I am stressed. So again, I don't know that I would notice it. So I think I'm pretty stress tolerant. Doesn't mean I'm not having physiological effects of stress.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get to me.
Gotcha.
And maybe that's also why I sleep pretty well.
Yeah,
right?
I can see that.
But I definitely had oily skin, acne, and this is something I've never had before in my life, very pronounced water retention. And it was combined with some travel. But I remember being.
This is with the Jitenzo.
This is with the Jitenzo
oral form. Okay, go ahead.
I remember being in the hotel, and I looked at my ankles, and they were like that. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And then I took my shirt off, and it was like just hanging there. It was like gross. I've never had that experience, and then I'm thinking, oh shit, am I gonna I have a heart attack or kidney damage because I'm retaining all this water? That more or less passed, but I continued to have the water retention, at least the swollen ankles, the whole time I was on the Jitenzo.
How did you check your levels at that time? I think you did.
Yeah, I mean, my testosterone was where we wanted it to be, ballpark.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
I don't think it was because I had somehow way overshot it. That's possible. That's possibly contributed to the
Sure.
water retention, or it was a combination of traveling, rich food while I was traveling, and the testosterone. And this is the other thing. So again, I have no idea whether this had anything to do with it, but don't try this at home, kids. This is not a good idea. I had just finished a cycle of rapamycin when I started the testosterone. So I went from this, taking this inhibitor of growth signaling to taking the testosterone. And so it's also possible my body was just like, what the hell is going on?
Just had the gas put on. Wow. Where were you traveling to where all this was happening?
Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a great trip outside of, the stuff going on at the water.
Oh, that's great.
So and I think I stayed on the Jitenzo for only like 3 months. The other thing I will say, and again, my personal opinion now, having done this, is if you're like if you're just anxious about doing injections and that's why you want to do the oral, just my advice would be just bite the bullet, do the injections, and not a big deal at all. But at that time I was anxious. So, so I was on it for about 3 months. And the only thing I'll say about the Jitenzo that I learned was, and this is through Amazon Pharmacy, it might be different, right? The manufacturer has a coupon. So I think Amazon wanted to charge me $500 for a month's supply or something like that of Jitenzo. And you can go get the coupon from the manufacturer, download the PDF, upload it to Amazon, and it like takes 80-90% of the cost off. So just a little tip, if you're getting your medications on Amazon and you're paying,
get the coupon.
Full price, and there's a coupon, get the coupon.
80 to 90%.
It was a huge difference. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it went from like 500 to 100 or 50 or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So anyways, so then I think I was actually visiting you and we were talking about this and I was starting as a patient of yours at that time. Right. You were like, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but my recollection is you're like, just stop with the oral.
Yeah.
Just let's try the injection.
Yeah. I don't have anybody on oral.
Yeah.
It's essentially 100%. I mean, everybody is on, in the appropriate people, every male that's on that is on injectable. Because you know exactly where you are. You know where it's reflected well in the serum.
Right.
You can get it physiologic. You're not too high, too low, and it's perfect. That's the way to.
Right. And it's not every day. I mean, I'm doing it twice a week, right? So it's no big deal. And you're like, I'll show you how to do it. So I think that's one thing is not not knowing what to do, right? Or trying to go on YouTube and how do you, it's like, it's much easier if you have somebody walk you through it. And then I was like, oh, that's no big deal. And so I've been doing it since then. And that was, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe. Feels like it's probably been about that long. It's been about 9 months, I think, that I've been on testosterone.
Yeah.
So, and I think what I can say now is, first of all, just generally speaking, this has been one of the, 4 or 5 most effective things I've done for my health. Like, absolutely no regrets. Not that there haven't been some side effects, which we talked about, but nothing major. And outside of that, all good. Like, again, energy, libido, low fatigue, mood, body composition, all going in the right direction. Feeling really good. And definitely, things that I am certain are attributed to the testosterone therapy. And again, I sort of think, there are a few things that personally I have done where you're just like, there's no doubt. Yeah, that worked, right? It had a positive effect. Cleaning up my diet, doing a lot more resistance training and focusing on that. Testosterone goes in that bucket, cutting back on alcohol. Like it's a short list of things where I'm like, yeah, that lever, you pull that lever, it has an impact as long as you do it right. So I am, again, I'm not trying to say that everybody should get on testosterone, but I think for the right people at the right time, if you're deficient, it could change your life in a very positive way. At least for me, I feel like it has.
Yeah. And that's real common. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I think maybe it's worth talking through common side effects and common benefits, and I can just sort of, give what I experienced. So one common side effect is increased red blood cell count. How frequently do you see that in your clients?
I think we've talked about this before. I don't, when you treat it at these lower levels twice a week, and some people would do 3 times a week, that way they don't have the effect on the LH dropping and all that. But it really doesn't, I haven't, the
doesn't seem common or even.
No, not if you do it right. Now, if you're doing high levels, and then some people do like one big injection every 2 weeks, or it's just, I think that's not the best way to go about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, I haven't experienced that. So acne and oily skin, I definitely did at first.
With the Jitenzo?
Yeah, and interestingly, that period where the DHEA seemed to really kick in, same thing. I definitely had acne, like a breakout of acne and very like oily skin. And I'm prone to oily skin anyways. So so I did have that. Fluid retention we talked about. I did have that. Have not since then, since going to the injectable. Sleep apnea, worsening. I don't think I have sleep apnea, so I haven't noticed that. But is that again something you
Yeah.
see?
Oh, yeah. We need to that's another important point before we ever consider doing testosterone replacement therapy on anybody. You have to absolutely be sure they don't have sleep apnea. That's yeah.
And have you seen it
Yeah.
happen in anybody who didn't have sleep apnea? Have you seen it cause sleep apnea?
I haven't seen it cause sleep apnea.
Okay.
I have seen people get their sleep apnea correct and are treated, and their testosterone improves.
Okay.
But
Interesting.
But yeah.
Yeah. Testicular atrophy and infertility. I mean, we're done having kids, so that wasn't a consideration in our case. And testicular atrophy, like I'm not the most body aware person, but I haven't noticed any like serious shrinkage. And it would be hard to tell because everybody's worried about rapamycin and testicular atrophy. So I've done both at the same time, and my testicles have not shriveled up into raisins.
Yeah,
I can say that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not gonna prove that on camera.
Oh,
at least yet. Maybe in the future, you guys will have to hold on. So I haven't really seen that, but I mean, that is probably a real, especially at high doses, a real side effect.
Yeah, as you see it, some people notice it. Some people, just everybody's a little different.
Yeah. Mood changes, irritability. I would say, if anything, I've gone the other direction. I don't know if that's something that you see commonly in your patients.
No, because we just kind of do a low level. So I never noticed that.
I mean, I think a lot of these, like anything else, the dose is going to contribute to how frequent the side effects are, for sure.
Yeah.
Breast tissue growth in men.
Yeah. I mean, you got to watch that. If you're, if they're treating it too high, you're doing, it'll convert to estrogen.
And you can measure estrogen too, right? And I think you recommend doing that. I think in my blood work, we've always
we do that
done that.
As far as the whole part of the whole panel. But I haven't noticed any of that on any of our clients.
Okay. And maybe, let's finish this list, and then maybe we talk through what you recommend as the essential biomarkers to measure when people are on testosterone. But we'll finish the side effect list. So injection site irritation, I've never had that problem. I assume some people do. I have heard that the oil that the testosterone is dissolved in can impact that. So some people are more sensitive to different types of oils. I don't know anything about it beyond that and what types of oils are typically used, but I haven't had that problem. Prostate issues. So a worsening of prostate issues. Again, I haven't noticed that. I mean, when you go to your primary care doc and they, look at your prostate, it's not a very quantitative exam, but nothing has come out that my prostate is growing, unexpectedly by exam or MRI. And then hair thinning, which I already talked about, which again, my perception was that I did have some hair thinning early on. It stabilized. Definitely male pattern baldness runs in my family.
Yeah.
So that
me too
probably can contribute. Yeah. I was thinking at some point I probably will go for it and go bald.
Oh, everybody
Tammy doesn't
says
want me
that.
to do that.
Everybody
She's like, don't do it. Don't do it. You know what? Maybe we should have, get one of those AI apps and we can put it on the podcast. Like, what would Matt look like bald?
So that has to do with the testosterone converting to the DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which we talked about before. And really it has to do with the actual person, their receptors to the DHT. So, you might have one guy have a little bit elevated DHT, doesn't affect him at all. And the same guy with the same level, it really affects him. So it's very personalized there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so again, I know there are some things that you can do if that's a concern to you. There are medications you can take. I haven't done that, but and so I don't know, are there any side effects that I didn't mention that people typically think about or that you have come across in your experience?
It's pretty much the common ones.
Okay. And then benefits, energy. Again, my perception is my energy's up. A part of that could just be that I'm more healthier, right?
Yeah.
But increased libido, definitely. Body composition, pretty noticeable changes in body composition. So, I've been doing resistance training for many years. I think like a lot of guys was disappointed that I wasn't seeing the muscle mass growth that I felt like I deserved for how hard I was working. And that all changed when I went on testosterone, like, dramatic increases in muscle mass. I will say one of the things that I noticed going on testosterone is my appetite went through the roof. I don't know if that's typical or not, but and when I started testosterone, I was very lean. I mean, we've talked about this. That was, I think I was down to about 11 and a half, percent body fat. And I had, visions of getting down to touching single digits and then coming back up.
You were lean.
Didn't happen. Might still, I'm not giving up, but I will say, I mean, I've always, been somebody who I get really hungry. Like I feel hunger. I feel it. And that's just been accentuated on testosterone. Like I'm hungry now, it's like Tammy is always commenting on how I'm always eating. So that is a side effect that I have definitely experienced. And so in the 9 months that I've been on testosterone, I have gained 20 pounds of body mass. And by DEXA, about 18 pounds of body mass. And by DEXA, about 10 of those are lean and 8.5 are fat. So, I don't know if that's positive. I mean, definitely my percent body fat has come up. I'm probably around 15% right now, which is still fine. But that it's not like it's all been muscle, right? In my experience. And no change in bone density. But I'm like 2.5 standard deviations or 3 standard deviations above the mean on bone density. So I don't know that I would want my bone density to go up. Cognitive function, memory. I can't say I've really noticed anything there. I don't perceive that I was having a challenge with cognitive function or memory. Although again, my wife might say differently, but I haven't noticed any positive changes there. Insulin sensitivity, haven't really seen any improvements in my metabolic markers. As you know, I'm certainly not where we would want all of my metabolic markers to be. I'm not diabetic or pre-diabetic, but there's room for improvement there. Testosterone hasn't really done anything there. The same thing with lipids, although my HDL actually went down, and what you'll read is that if anything, testosterone might increase HDL. My HDL has seen a pretty precipitous drop since I went on testosterone. Again, it could be something else, but I haven't changed diet. If anything, I'm exercising better than I was. So I'm not really sure if testosterone caused that or not, but there has been a drop in HDL since I started. That's about it.
Your LDL change at all, or
no?
ApoB?
It's pretty similar. So again, I think that the take home is not everybody's going to get all of these benefits. Not everybody's going to get all the side effects. If you get the dosing right, you can probably avoid most of the side effects. But that's going to be a personal, individual thing and so, aside from, I guess there's a few take homes I would leave with, and then let's talk about the blood biomarkers. But the take homes for me are, like number one, do I regret like waiting so long to start? Yeah, a little bit.
Really?
I think there's value in going through it, making sure that, trying to see if you can improve your testosterone naturally. But again, as I said earlier, the benefits have so outweighed any negatives, of which now I don't think there are really any. There were some side effects early on that, I'm like, yeah, I wish I'd done it earlier if I'd known, what the benefits were going to be. So, if you're on the fence, I would say go through the process, right? But also don't be scared of the, injections. Certainly you need to make sure that it's something you're comfortable with potentially for the rest of your life. And, do it under the care of somebody who knows what they're doing. I think that's probably the most important thing. Is I started with somebody who didn't have a lot of experience with hormone therapy in men. There are, as we've alluded to, all these clinics popping up that don't even do blood work first, or if they do, it's very rudimentary, and they just prescribe it. You're not going to get the dosing right, most likely. So make sure you're working with a medical professional who really has experience and knows what they're doing and is responsible in the space, I would say, is super important.
Yeah, and really the follow-up, once you start, it's very imperative that you repeat some of these labs 8 to 12 weeks to make sure you're really in the sweet spot where you should be, that's physiological.
Right. So let's talk about the labs. What are the things that you focus on that you think are kind of the essential things to measure to tell if somebody's in the sweet spot or not? How do you know?
Um, from the hormone aspect, you want to do obviously everything you alluded to: the total testosterone, the free testosterone, the SHBG, and the albumin levels. You want to do luteinizing hormone, LH, FSH. So do LH primarily in men, and then and check estrogen and DHT to kind of give you the full picture. Obviously, outside of that, you're going to do, all the other, CBC, CMP, all that other jazz, and the lipids, et cetera. But, primarily for the hormones, that piece, I don't believe I'm leaving anything out. And then, yeah, so that's kind of the whole thing you want to get. And then decide if you want to treat and what options are. But as far as the biomarkers, that's pretty much the deal.
And when people go on testosterone,
Yeah.
you do it at, let's say 12 weeks after you start.
Yeah.
What are you looking for there to see if you've got it dialed in or not?
So the total testosterone, I want that around, 700 to 1,000 in that range. And then the free testosterone around, 130 to 200 tops. I don't like to get higher than that if I can. And then following the DHT, if there's any side effects, if the estrogen's up too high, which usually it's not if you're not feeding into that, with
And presumably
these levels.
that's going to also be a little bit individual genetic predisposition
Very much
for
so.
how much goes down different pathways.
Yeah, and some people we have to, if their estrogen just kind of goes a little bit higher than we'd like, we kind of manage that. But, men need estrogen too. It's cardioprotective, so that's important to
Right. Yeah, you don't want to completely knock it out.
You don't want to block that. Yeah.
So you've got me right now on testosterone cypionate.
Yep.
And that's in grapeseed oil. So we were talking about the different oils, right?
Yeah.
And then there's anastrozole. What is the anastrozole there for?
That blocks the amount that aromatase enzyme, which converts testosterone to estrogen.
Okay, so that
Estradiol.
low dose of anastrozole is going to reduce how much of the testosterone gets converted into estradiol.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very low dose though, and we're,
right.
And
so let's talk about the dose. So I'm on 200. It's 200 mg per mil testosterone, 0.5 mg per mil anastrozole, and I inject 0.3 mils twice a week. So total would be 120 mgs of testosterone a week.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that a pretty typical dose?
Yes. Yeah. Some people are a little bit less, but it's usually around 0.3 mils is what I do, about 100 to 102 milligrams. I mean, you just don't need much more than that.
Yeah.
There's diminishing returns if you get higher in somebody.
And the side effects are more likely to set in.
And there's not really any benefit. So you really just don't need, need very much.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'll say, ever since I've started the injectables, like the side effects have gone away, at least the ones that I'm aware of. And it's just not a big deal. Like, again, looking back, I'm like, why was this a source of anxiety? Like, it's no big deal. Twice a week. The only thing I still haven't done is bring it with me on travels. And I know you tell me that you're allowed to, but I just have this, anxiety. I'm going to get pulled out of TSA and not that they're gonna be worried about the testosterone, but they're gonna be worried about the needles or something. I don't know. It's dumb. I'm gonna do it on this next trip.
But yeah, it's not a big deal. Where are you going to next? You're going to Dublin this weekend.
Yeah, I'm leaving for Dublin Saturday.
Yeah,
for the Dublin Longevity Conference.
Right, right. That'll be good.
Yeah. So, okay, so we already talked about, I know one question people probably going to ask is did rapamycin cause the testosterone deficiency, or did it have any impact? We sort of talked about that, but once again, the answer is no, it didn't cause the deficiency because I was diagnosed as deficient before the first time I ever took rapamycin. And as far as I can tell, it didn't change it at all. So as far as I can tell, no effect. The literature on this isn't even clear that rapamycin has any real effect on testosterone. So I don't think there's a there, at least at the doses people are using off-label. The other question I know comes up a lot, and I just did a webinar yesterday for Live Long, and somebody asked about testosterone, and Chris Mirabile was moderating the webinar, he started to go down this path of, well, doesn't testosterone accelerate aging and shorten lifespan? And I had to kind of stop him and say, no, there's no data to support that. I mean, the only data that people will point to is there are a couple of studies that suggest that eunuchs live a little bit longer than intact men, right? And so there's lots of problems with that data. Number one,
it's not a way to live, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, right, but there are some problems with first of all, is that even true? And then secondly, even if it's true, how do you get from that to testosterone accelerates aging, right? So there are questions around whether that data is solid or not. But let's just assume that it is. So that's question number one. Question, number two then is it something else about the eunuchs that could be contributing to their modest, my recollection is it's pretty small, a few years, increase in life expectancy. I mean, obviously their lifestyle is different. Their stress levels are going to be different. There are going to be things other than testosterone that go along with being castrated, right? So there could easily be something else about the eunuchs that's causing the increased life expectancy that's not testosterone.
Was he quoting a study?
There's two studies. I think one was in Korean eunuchs, and then I don't remember the context of the other one. Yeah. And I think that, again, like I said, there are questions about whether that's even accurate, that data, whether that's even true. But just assuming that it is, there are lots of things that could be other than the testosterone. The other thing I think that is worth thinking about as well is stage of life when you first experience testosterone deficiency, right? So presumably, and again, I don't know all the data, my guess is most of these eunuchs were castrated early in life. So that creates a very different trajectory than, men who first start experiencing testosterone deficiency late in life, when you are also, more at risk for frailty, more at risk for cognitive decline, more at risk for cardiovascular disease. And there's reasons to believe that decline in testosterone is contributing to those things. Just like in women, the hormonal changes during menopause, perimenopause, contribute to those things. So it's a very different biological situation in people who are castrated early in life versus people who experience hormonal changes late in life. So again, I think there's just lots of reasons why it's sort of wildly speculative to attribute, even if it's real, this slight difference in life expectancy to testosterone.
Yeah.
In those individuals.
Is this a recent study? Are there eunuchs around to really study?
Yeah, no, this is from, again, many, many years ago. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So then the question becomes, is there data other than the eunuchs to support the idea that testosterone impacts biology of aging, aging rate, lifespan, health span? As far as I know, there's no data in mice one way or the other. So, or in laboratory animals. So male mice do decline in testosterone with age. I don't think anybody has ever done a testosterone supplementation experiment, which is really the experiment you'd want to do. You want to mimic what's being done in people to sort of restore testosterone levels to normal levels in aging mice. That's the experiment to do. We'd love to see that experiment done. I'm not aware of any data one way or the other. So then we look at humans, and I think the perception that testosterone might accelerate aging comes in part from the idea that growth promoting pathways tend to accelerate aging. So IGF-1, growth hormone. Again, that's complicated because those hormones do accelerate aging if they are high during development. Less clear that they accelerate aging if they are supplemented to normal levels that change with age. And growth hormone's interesting because there have been lots of, anti-aging docs who've been prescribing growth hormone for decades now. And what I would say is it seems that it doesn't have a big effect either direction in that context, growth hormone, in terms of longevity.
Right.
So I don't think there's any real data in humans to suggest that testosterone is likely to accelerate aging. Can't rule it out. But I think there's lots of data to support the idea that testosterone can improve quality of life and health span for a lot of men, much in the same way that hormone therapy in women can improve quality of life and health span. And again, we can point at the long list of conditions that are age-related where testosterone seems to be beneficial. And then again, it's intuitive that having a body composition where you've got higher bone density, more muscle mass, less visceral adipose is likely to be associated with lower health risks and longer lifespan.
Yeah.
Could it be the case that the testosterone is going to have negative effects that counteract that? Yeah, that's possible. But I think all things being even, to me, the probabilities would suggest that, if anything, again, we're talking about supplementing to normal physiological levels, not, doing super physiological doses of testosterone, doing it right. If anything, the probabilities to me would suggest there's a net likelihood of a gain in health span and potentially longevity, but I'm less confident about that.
I think it moves a lot of those biomarkers in the right direction.
Yeah.
I've seen it improve insulin resistance and all that other stuff. You get all that other stuff straight in the lifestyle, and you add on a little testosterone if it's needed.
Right.
It just helps with all that. And it's naturally anti-inflammatory. There's a lot of other benefits there too.
Right. So I guess one question I have for you is, we touched on this earlier, the idea that if you're going to do testosterone therapy, it's important to also focus on other aspects of lifestyle, right?
Sure.
Certainly from my experience, seeing the results, seeing more obvious results from resistance training has been inspiring to me to keep doing that, right? Is that your sort of experience that when men come in and they start testosterone therapy, at least some of them are actually more likely to engage with a healthy lifestyle, in part because the intervention is allowing them to get results more rapidly and more pronounced than they would when you're like struggling to get there. It's kind of like the GLP-1s with weight loss, right?
Yeah.
I know lots of people who have started GLP-1s, they're overweight or obese. They start GLP-1s and they see the results, and that gives them the psychological motivation to actually lean in on the lifestyle side.
Yeah. Yeah, they see the benefit and everything of, a little bit of testosterone to help, and that moves. And I would say anybody that starts it, if they're the right person and all that sort of stuff, then I tell them, don't waste it. If you're going to do it, utilize it.
Right.
That's going to help your longevity.
Yeah.
One being, exercise and doing all those other things. You'll be able to tolerate better, but just don't sit around.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyways, again, from my experience, I would put this in, the bucket of something that definitely moves the needle for health span, at least for me personally. And I think a lot of people have had this experience. And again, for guys who are out there, maybe where I was 5-6 years ago, my experience has been, this is absolutely a game changer. And you want to make sure that you do your homework and you get with a medical provider who knows what they're doing. And it can have a very positive impact on your health.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks. Hopefully folks find this valuable. I think I feel like it's something that you don't often hear like real honest talk about. And
it was almost like a confession, Matt.
Not at all, actually. Again, I think it's more like...
and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right. I mean, I think it's more like, hopefully sharing an experience that people can relate to and learn from. And again, I'm not saying testosterone is right for everyone. It's not.
Right.
But I think there is a big group of people out there who experience, what I have experienced, and who are hesitant to go down this path for many of the same reasons. And I know this is true because the funny thing is, since I've started testosterone, I'm pretty open. I haven't talked about it on the podcast really before, but I'm pretty open when I'm talking to people about my experiences. And I have talked with, I don't know, at least a dozen guys who are like, oh yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm really, I'm nervous about it, but I kind of want to do it. And so I tell them my story, and I think it's helped some people. So hopefully this is a way where more people can hear it. There'll probably be lots of questions. Like I tried to answer a couple of the questions that I'm sure people are going to ask, but if anybody has questions, I'll be happy to do like an AMA on this. As you can tell, I'm pretty open about what's going on. So I'm happy to answer any questions that people have, men or women, about my experience and what I know and how I think about this. So Feel free, please, to put any questions or comments below the video, or you can go to the Optispan website. There's a form there where you can submit questions. We'll gather them, and maybe we'll do an AMA. Maybe next time you're in Seattle or I'm in Oklahoma, we can get together and do that. And hopefully people find this informative. As always, thank you for watching the Optispan podcast, and we hope to see you next time.